Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name's Brondum. I'll be your host for today's interview. I'm excited to be joined by David Adams, Director of Technology at Climatec. He's here to talk about his perspective on where the building controls industry is going and how leaders like Climatec are adapting. David, thank you for your time today. And let's get started. So, to kick things off, can you tell us a little bit about your role and what you've been working on lately?
Yeah, I'm the director of technology at Climatec, and the main role of myself and my team is really digital transformation in our company. Continually rolling out new technologies, evaluating it, standardizing it, so we're not learning it in the field. And we have 10 branches across the U.S. We're continually growing and certainly going through this digital transformation.
Um,
Absolutely.
with that, how have the expectations from owners and general contractors changed over the past few years compared to what it was when, 10 or 20 years ago?
It's a lot of stuff has changed. I mean, the complexity of the building certainly demanding a much better occupant experience, smarter buildings, better comfort, energy efficiency, of course, with has a lot of specialized sequence of operation as well as monitoring, fault detection, make sure everything's working well. Also, awareness in the spaces. There's an expectation that the customers want, kind of especially after COVID, needing to get people back in spaces. They need to be very open with their quality of air and things like that in the space. Additionally, faster times. I mean, over the years, we used to build buildings over the course of many years. Now it's a year, a couple of years, very fast action. I remember we used to have to shut down a building in a school district for the whole year. Now we're doing them over a summer in 3 months. So definitely getting faster. And of course, security. Security is really, that's probably front most right now in our industry is security, and it's ever changing. It's just so volatile, not volatile, but just changing every day. Different requirements from different customers.
What kind of technologies or principles are becoming table stakes? I know you mentioned security. I'm guessing that's for front and center with what they're asking for. Feel free to expand on that and any others that come top of mind.
Obviously, one of the bigger ones is the development of the cloud, and it's not just we've had the cloud for a while, but it's the acceptance of the cloud. Of course, that brings challenges to connect to the facility. But yes, I think that's the biggest change. I think right now all the vendors are trying to keep up with the smart connectivity, how that connectivity is to happen, and how to integrate security into their systems.
Great. You know, with that, everybody's talking about AI, and any company that you talk to has got to have some sort of messaging around it. Where do you see AI fitting in with this automation space, and where do you think it's having the biggest impact today, and where you think it's going to have the biggest impact in the near future?
Well, immediately it's for our workflows processes, internal, deliver a job faster and more quality. Skilled labor is hard to get, as we all know. It's been a tough thing, so we have to allow our staff to become more efficient, and AI is our solution to that. Besides the tooling and things like that, I think AI is a trick to that. Um, it also allows entry level positions to do work that normally a skilled labor would have to do. And also, for an example, we've developed out in the field, it's just internal for workflow process, but also external for starting up a job. We've developed a auto checkout. It's a really basic level of AI, but it saves 40 to 60% of our startup labor. And that's significant savings. And we just got to be able to identify and correct the issues quickly. And AI, I think, is that answer. I mean, it hasn't really evolved into the building space quite yet. It might be on the cloud level, but not in the building space. So we're going to navigate how that transitions, and of course through all this maintain security with that, because that's people are very concerned about what AI will be able to do.
So you guys are seeing during the checkout process that it's had a dramatic impact on um, getting your technicians to get through like rooftop units and VAV boxes.
Yeah, especially with certain vendors that are more progressive, that have like open APIs and things like that we can access to other than just BACnet, because we know BACnet is just a very basic protocol. So yeah, we're finding that certainly with certain vendors for sure.
Okay. As you're evaluating platforms and you're evaluating new technologies to add to your toolbox there at Climatech, what are the main things you guys are looking for, and what are you looking for, when you're planning for long-term scalability, and also how do you support those new platforms or technologies that you guys are adopting?
Well, I think first and foremost is the vendor support. We've had vendors that, as yourself, that have been very responsive to our needs, and others that are more of a, what we're losing is we've always had that relationship in the past with our vendors, but now with all the online vendors, cloud providers, you're going to be lucky to even talk to a person. You have to navigate through their tech support system. So I think in this transition for all of us, we still have to keep the people in the process. It gets very hard, especially when it comes to security. We're not security by trade. We're building automation vendors. We install control systems into buildings. We're not an IT security. So with that, we have to rely on outside sources. We have specialists inside, but they're still not IT folks necessarily that are going to do that. So we lean heavily on our vendors to help us navigate not just what their core business is, but how we can install it and maintain secure systems.
I've been in the industry for a long time. I like to tell people it's a relationship business. And it's about trust, and it's not necessarily the best widget that's out there or the cheapest widgets that's out there. It's who's the team that's behind it and the team that can deliver it. And I'm sure that's why a lot of your customers pick Climatec, because they know it's a company that they can trust to deliver a solution that meets their needs, but also somebody that's going to stand behind it.
Yeah, I think I added that with you said cheap is not necessarily the best. Anytime we're doing competitive, if somebody is low, especially if they're really low or different price level, it's like, okay, what's the catch? You know what I mean? Because everybody's in there to maximize profit. They don't want to give stuff away. So you really have to navigate that, because cheaper is not better or less expensive is not better, even if it's a quality product. However, we're looking to see how we can expand that with AI in our workflows. We might be able to deliver more with less and lower our prices, but I still think there's a cost for AI in the end, but that's the whole idea, is that we become more efficient and stay competitive.
Fantastic. In what ways is Neeve helping you improve your position and opportunities with customers and prospects?
Well, ID departments are really entering into our world, because now we're coming up with IP controllers. When it was over a twisted pair and we just had maybe a supervisor on their network, not a big deal. But now that we've got many devices on their network, they're going, oh my goodness, what is all this stuff? They can't probe it like they can a computer to see what it is. They just see a vendor or something. So they're in a panic mode of what these things are. And if you step back a little bit and look at it, you've got a black box sitting on their network that is a computing device that's talking IP protocols. Even if it's backnet over IP, it still has access to their network. I would be panicking too. Like, what can this thing do? Who has access to it? Where is it going? So the Neeve solution really came in to help with that. We've had other solutions as well, but Neeve really breaks it down on a user by user level, and not only by a system by system level, but what can they do with that system? For instance, can they just get to the web supervisor, or do they have access to the IP ports that allow them to program it, which is where a lot of the risk is in that part of it. Centralized management of those users, and it's role-based. So, I mean, it checks all the boxes off for us. And there is IT speak in there. You can't get away from it. But when you go into the interface, it's not, deep down like some of the other IT systems I've seen, where you have to have an IT degree or something to understand the jargon on the screen. So it checked a lot of boxes for us, and it seems to be a great product moving forward.
That's great. Thanks. Yeah, I get a lot of people that will say, as I'm talking to them about our product, they'll say, well, we're going to move to BACnet SC. And that's fantastic and that's great. But there's more than BACnet that goes into these buildings. And
Correct.
not all of the different vendors are going there. And I think the Neve solution really puts that moat in between the internet and what's downstream. Because you have, lighting panels. You might have a rooftop unit that's got an IP connection to it. Who knows what's on that device? It does talk BACnet, but what else? And
Yeah,
curious
we
on
did a
your
smart
thoughts around
building.
that as
It,
well.
every, it had shades. It had solar information come from the cloud. I mean, I can't remember, half a dozen or so systems. They were all IP-based systems, and they all had to interconnect. They wanted to centralize the control through the BAS, so we had to do interface through the BAS to the lights and the shades and everything. And that was all done over the internet, the IP network. It was also internet information coming from the vendors too, back and forth, and we had to navigate all that. There's no way we would have done that without, really focusing on security. And this was a secure customer. Everybody's secure now. They all have intellectual property and customers to protect.
Are you starting to see specifications that design engineers are including that talk about security for OT systems?
We definitely are seeing it. We're not quite there yet. I see some specs, and after going through the security side of it, I see some of these specs. I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't deliver it this way because I feel like we would be at risk. Right? So we typically still provide that security if they don't specify it, depending on what level they're at. But yes, it's definitely becoming a part of it. The difficulty is a lot of times, remember, the specifications we get are typically from the mechanical engineer. They're not IT people either, so they put verbiage in there that we have to really navigate through. Almost every job we have RFIs going in to clarify exactly what level they want. You can't just refer back to the IT spec because that's a whole different world. So we have our own requirements that we need to do to make sure we can keep the BAS running.
You know, in my experience, it's always been a deep collaboration between the design engineer and what ultimately is going to be the facility operations team when you do projects. I feel now it's still that same group, but it's an even deeper collaboration to bring in that company's IT and cybersecurity team as well. Are you starting to see the same thing?
Absolutely. Definitely have to bring them in early. You can't wait until your network is going in. That has to start at the beginning of the job because that process is very long. It's not because it's technically very long, it's just approval wise. Everybody has to get in there and approve the network, understand the network, and that process can take quite a bit of time to get that navigated. So definitely, if that's in there, work with through your contractors, your chain of command, and figure out how you can get to those folks to make sure this is working right. If you're sitting in that meeting with the GC, bring that up early. Don't wait until your network goes in, which typically is at the end of the project. And if you're dependent on that network, the GC needs to understand what you need from work to meet the schedule.
So if you get a project, see a specification that doesn't talk about cybersecurity, no mention of it at all, and you could deliver that project to the specification, what is Climatec's position? Do you deliver the project or do you actually embed some sort of cybersecurity with it just to protect your customer and protect your business?
Well, I think at some level, regardless of the job, whether it's specified or not, we have to provide cybersecurity. I think as a business you have to, because if or when a breach occurs, you want to be protected. And if you haven't taken any measures at all, then it's hard to fall back and say you didn't know, because we do know now. And if it's not specified, you should probably be writing RFIs of how this is there. And that should start actually in the sales process, not after you're awarded. If you don't see that in there, that should be brought up in sales and in part of your sales advantage as you're going after that job.
Do you think that helps Climatec win projects? I'm sure you're not always the cheapest, but because you're thorough and trusted, those kind of
Absolutely.
approaches help.
Yeah, all things given the same, even if they don't have a security spec that's brought up, and it's more brought up not as a sales thing, but as a partnership with that customer, because that's what that becomes. It becomes a partnership with the customer to understand their needs, because there is a price to pay, not just dollar-wise in security, but it does make it a little bit more cumbersome. You can't just walk into your office and log in and look at everything. You got to validate multi-factor authentication now. I think I have to always enter into these meetings 15 minutes beforehand so I can get everything logged in and approved. So it's not, you just can't walk into the room and, if you will, figuratively, and make it happen. There's a lot involved in it.
Great, great. So as we're kind of closing out here, just curious some final thoughts from you. First question around that is, you're evaluating technology, and when I met you a little over a year ago, it was kind of fun to see your position, and you get to see a lot of different things. What are some of your favorite technologies you guys are kicking the tires on today that might be interesting or worth sharing?
Well, AI for sure. That's the first and foremost. I've been through 4 or 5 different events over the summer. Every one of them was focused around AI. So it's here. So we have to catch up. Everybody needs to catch up. If you don't, you got to think about it. If you don't, I think you're, the whole Netflix blockbuster scenario, right? So do you want to become the next Netflix and succeed, or do you want to be a blockbuster and just fade off into the sunset? We have to adopt that. And it's not going to go away. Security is big. We still have, I don't, probably bad percentage, 50-50 or so, which it's not that they don't care about security, but they don't really have a high-end security requirement in the specifications, but it is exponentially going there. We have to ask for an ISP, and that has to go through IT, and anything that's coming through that pipe, they want to know, and they want to know where it's going and how we're regulating that. So we as integrators have to have a security mindset going into these things.
So here at Neeve, we sell a subscription-based software as a service. It's a little bit disruptive here in the building automation space because the building automation space tends to lag industry by 10 years or so. What are your thoughts on these vendors coming in with subscription-based solutions?
Well, back to Netflix, that's what this world is. Can you do anything in this world without a subscription? So I think now at this point, everybody knows their subscriptions. They're adopting. We do have old school vendors that don't. Where the subscription interface comes into play is with the BAS and in the contracting of that BAS and that subscription. So the issue is what happens when that subscription expires? Their BAS can't go down. Yeah. That's not an option. So that's where the rub is with the subscription. I think most customers are okay with that, but this also goes to OpEx versus CapEx. So in the CapEx side, they have to purchase it, but then there has to be a subscription model in that. So how do we transfer that to OpEx for the recurring costs and the recurring fees? So there's always a navigation of that as you deploy jobs. But yes, I think it's going to be the only option. If you want technology, if you want to be advanced, you're going to have to subscribe. And it makes sense too, because for you being a cloud provider, the cost to provide that same service outside of a subscription service would be near impossible, I think. To have that recurring revenue to build that and continue to develop it. It's not like you're buying a product and renting it. It's a continually developing product. And I think that's what's important for you to know as a systems integrator, but also for the customer to understand that it's just not a static rental fee, if you will, for lack of a better term.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. Appreciate that. So on your final thoughts, any advice for system integrators out there, and where do you see Climatec leaning in next?
Well, as I mentioned before, security, you got to have that mindset, talk with your customers, education, that's a big thing. Make sure your customers are educated on what this is and be open about the risks. Everybody's afraid to say that there's a risk. There's always a risk. So identify those risks, and IT will surely appreciate it when you're in those conversations. What is your risk? What do we have to do, and how do we minimize that risk? It's not about eliminating the risk. It's about minimizing it, because you can't completely eliminate it. I wish we could. Maybe someday we can, but right now I think that's it. Back to that security mindset, keeping up with technology, and don't be afraid of AI. It's going to be here. It will be here. And if you don't adopt it, your competitors will.
Great closing thoughts. David, thanks again. Really appreciate the time. Really appreciate the partnership, and look forward to continuing some conversations in the near future.
Absolutely, and thank you for providing a great product for us to use. Thank you.